up, everybody? August 29th for you. Because you're watching or listening today. Today, it's August 28th for me. And it's a significant day in my life. Because I'm getting a vasectomy today. Dudes like to say, you getting snipped? Bro, you getting snipped? Yeah, I'm getting snipped. Some dudes are like, nah, bro. Nah, I don't get snipped, okay? No one's snipping off my manhood. And I'm just like, I could care less. My wife is like, are you nervous? I'm like, I'm not nervous. I just really don't want to get cut open, you know? And then I think, like, last night I was thinking about, I'm like, oh, it's going to suck. And I'm just like, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm doing it. I'm going to go in. I'm just going to, like, let it be whatever it is. But at the same time, now I'm thinking about, I'm like, oh, God, going to cut me open. Then I think about, if I had to have a baby, okay? Women have this thing about men, like, oh, you don't know what it's like to have a baby. No, shit. I can't have a baby. I cannot have a baby. Okay? Don't hold it against me. But if I was thinking, if I get into the world where I start wondering, like, man, could I have a baby? Or what would it be like if I had a baby? I bet the anxiety of what it's going to be like. What else? When else do you have this anxiety come over you of, like, a pain and a situation that your body's going to do that you can't control? The only time is, and this, I don't like to, I hate poop talk. I hate it. But, like, if you're getting a big poop and you know it's going to, and you, like, you feel it, and you're like, oh, man, this is going to hurt. You know what I mean? There's nothing you can do about it. I've watched my kids go through it, and you're like, oh, I know, buddy. I know. With both my son and my daughter. Anyway, I can't even imagine the anxiety that goes with that. Like, Jesus. It's not like something you know anything about. You don't know anything about it or what it's going to feel like. Oh, God. Anyway. Getting snipped today because what are we going to do? Pay for birth control the rest of our lives? That's dumb. Whatever. I'm done. I don't want any more kids. I'm done. So that's happening today. Welcome back to the Thruline podcast, everybody. You guys, I love you so much, and I appreciate all of you so much. I put out there I'm doing a solo up today. People responded. I got some good stuff to talk about from you, some good stuff from myself. Lots of great things happening. A lot of you guys out there on social media, on Instagram, I'm Jay Larson Comedy. On Facebook, I'm Jay Larson Comedy. I'm also comedian Jay Larson on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, who's on Twitter? I hear people talk about it sometimes, like, oh my God, on Twitter, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, who's even on it anymore? I'm sorry, I'm out of touch. Yeah, out of touch. Another solo up today. Some people had said, like, hey, man, I love the solo ups, but sometimes it's nice to hear your perspective from talking to another person. So I got some set up, some other interviews, but I'm going to keep doing the solo ups because I really like just doing it. Okay, guys, so suck it. What else do I want to let you know about? September, first weekend in September, I'm in Sunnyvale, California, at Rooster T. Feathers, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Here's the deal. I was supposed to be there Sunday. No mas, bro. No mas. It's way too long to be away from my family. I'll get into that later. And then in the middle of November, the 14th, 15th, 16th, I'm at Laugh Boston. Weekend before that, I believe it's the 7th, 8th, and 9th, I'm in Hartford, Connecticut at the Funny Bone. And then December 14th, 15th, 16th, I'm in Burlington, Vermont, which I cannot wait for. Listen to me. I love performing live stand-up comedy. It's the best. But Vermont, dude, you've been to Vermont in the winter. It's cold. There's like antique. You go into stores and there's like classical music being played in antique stores, and people are just so Vermont there. You're not going to get thrown a curveball in Vermont. I always love it when somebody look stereotypically like something I would imagine them to be, and then they're not. Vermont pretty much is like, yo, this is who we are. You want maple syrup? Yeah, we got maple syrup. You want some funky, weird beer you've never had? Yeah, we make that. You want the best breakfast you ever had that has 2,500 calories? Yeah, we got that. Do you want an F ton of white people? We got it. We got it. You want a little side of Bernie Sanders? We got that, player. So I'm stoked. I just love it there. It, like as a kid, we never went to Vermont. I never went to Vermont, even growing up in Massachusetts. But when I'm there, I just kind of feel like I'm at home. So I'm looking forward to that. And then New Year's Eve, Portland, Oregon. I will be with you for 2 shows at Helium Comedy Club. Please get tickets. Come out to some shows. And listen, if you live somewhere that I am not going to, and obviously you know where I'm going because I keep telling you, and you want me to go there, call your club and be like, yo, can you book Jay Larson? Like, what's the fucking deal? What's your vibe? Now, I might not want to go there, okay? I might not want to go there. But please, I want to get out and see you guys, and the only way I can do that is if you guys are having, being active. Same thing goes with social media. I've been putting up tons of videos. Some of you have the special, some of you don't. Those of you who don't but are like sharing the video, I appreciate that so many people are sharing it. Tell people about the podcast. Share different videos I put up there because that's the only way that we keep growing and get things to move forward. So you guys are awesome with all of those different elements. We got a sponsor this week, you guys, and it's fantasy football related. I'm stoked about it. New season. It's not fantasy football related. It's gambling related. Do you like to gamble? I know that I do. I love it. New season. Antonio Brown's on the Raiders. Le'Veon Bell's with the Jets. ODB is in Cleveland. One thing that hasn't changed is if I'm going to bet this season, I'm going to my bookie is where I'm betting on football every weekend. I'm going to tell you guys a story a little later about how I got into gambling. I just love it. There's just something I love about it. I have a problem sometimes. I bet with my heart. I'm just like, nah, I know. My bookie has better bonuses and more prop bets than any other sports book, period. This year, they're hosting the first online handicapping super contest. First place is guaranteed to win $100K, and it costs $100 to enter. All you got to do is pick 5 NFL games against the spread every week to climb the leaderboard and score your share of the huge cash prize pool. See, this is the thing that I love about. Man, if I could gamble all the time, it would be scary because you're betting on individual games. This I like because it's almost like everything's like a parlay. It's not, you're betting on a bunch of different things and see what happens. So I like this for that reason. I think it's a cool experience. You're not just betting on one game against one game. You're putting them all together and you're like, it's like a competition in a way. You know what I mean? You bet, you win, they pay, baby. MyBookie has live in-game betting on every NFL game. They've got the most rewarding player perks in the business. And for your fantasy, anyone who's doing fantasy out there, you can bet over-under or how many fantasy points a player will score in each game. Now, that's getting deep. That's kind of more fun. You can just bet on guys fantasy-wise. I dig that. Here's the deal. Up to $1,000 first deposit bonus. Double your first deposit. You put in the money, I think they're going to double it. That's what it sounds like to me. Double your first deposit. Use promo code Thruline, THRULINE, to activate the offer. Visit MyBookie online today. That's MyBookie. And don't forget to use a promo code Thruline when creating your account to claim the bonus. Bet, win, get paid. You know I'm going to be playing there. That is a fact. I'm getting a little jacked up thinking about it because I love that stuff. When I picked fantasy this year, I don't know how many people out there doing fantasy, but I don't know. I just love it. I was never a huge football fan. Actually, what am I talking about? Growing up as a kid, I was a everything sport fan. That was just who I was. I couldn't help it. If it was a sport, I was a fan. And, my mom wasn't into football, but I would still follow it because I would always follow box scores and stuff. But now that I'm into fantasy football, like I love it. I play every year. I won both my league. I don't know if anyone out there knows this, but I used to write for the NFL. So they have this like Fox has this like animated robot on during the Fox games that no one can stand. They named him Cletus, which I can't understand why people. Let me just turn this off because I don't need to be getting things from people. They named him Cletus, which was like the weirdest. I get it. Yeah, it's supposed to sound like a whatever. Cletus. And anyway, I would tweet for it. for Fox, and then I wrote a blog for Fox. I was doing a lot of different things over there in the football world, and every Sunday, this was no kids. I had no kids. Let's live this fantasy for a second. I had no kids. I go into the Fox lot every Sunday morning. I get there around 9:30. Okay, they'd have a full spread laid out: eggs, bagels, lox, pastries, coffee. They had like beer, wine. I wasn't drinking on the job. And then they had a woman who was like, would come over and ask if I never went to her. I was always like, no, I'm going to get my own thing. They make Bloody Marys. And then I would sit, they called it the avocado room. And then there'd be one main TV and then like 12 TVs around it. And they had every game going. And then right off this door were like Howie Long, Michael Strahan, Jimmy Johnson, Terry Bradshaw. That's where they were recording. And then they come in here, they get some eats, they sit during breaks, and they go back in there. And like one day, like Usher was in there, Piers Morgan was in there. Like it was the coolest. And they used to tell me like, you don't have to come in to do this, because I would live tweet as Cletus throughout all these games. But I loved it. It was the best. And I did that for 2 seasons, and I won. I was in 2 fantasy leagues. I won each league. I won one year and won the other year because I just knew everything that was going on. I heard rumblings, and I'd be like, oh, blah, 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 boom. I'd grab guys. People like, how'd you know about that guy? I'm like, I'm hearing, everything 2 days before you're hearing it. And it was awesome. Now with the kids, I can't put as much energy in, and I don't have that job, to like researching fantasy. Like I have friends that like research. This year I took a different strategy. This is what I did. I did a mock draft. I was like, I like this guy, this guy, this guy. I feel like it's a deep wide receiver year. I'm going to get these guys up top and then load up on middle of the road, like decent, like not so great throwing teams like the Tennessee Titans. They run the ball a ton. So I'm like, well, I can get their number 1 wide receiver later. Okay. And then getting like number 2 wide receiver, like second, third year wide receiver guys, because I feel like they could break out. Now, am I going to tank? Yeah, I could. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Yeah, I pay like $213 in my league. I do 2 leagues this year. Anyway, so I'm looking forward to it because it's gambling. That's what I like about my bookie is I think I might do a little gambling this year too. You know what I mean? Nothing crazy. It's just fun every once in a while to like have a little something on a game. Like that's why people like fantasies, because you're watching guys, you're rooting for teams. You're like out at like a family event, and you just like open up your phone and you see that like the Texans are up 35-0 at halftime, and you have Deshaun Watson, and you're like, oh, let me know what he's got, bro. Anyway, when I was in college, I had flunked out of college. But I had this summer job painting houses. Did that happen then? Yeah, I had this summer job painting houses, so I had like a lot of money. And I was going to buy a Jeep, okay? I wanted to buy a Jeep. And, I had this money, and I had flunked out of college. And so I was doing whatever. And my friend was at college, and he and all his buddies were betting on football, college and pro. Now, I wasn't doing that. And none of us had ever done that, like through bookies and stuff. But what they started doing is they were all pooling their money at his fraternity house, and they were calling this guy. And, this is back in the day when there was, there wasn't internet really. You would people would find this number of a guy. You'd call him. You'd Western Union him money, and then he would tell you who to pick. That's what this guy did. He was like a handicapper, a guy who like supposedly knew more than everyone else. So we're like, oh. So my buddy calls me. He's like, you got to call this guy. You got to put some money on, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't know, man. I wasn't even gambling. I don't know why he just was like, oh, I'm the perfect guy to do this. That's how people think about me. They're like, oh, yeah, him? Yeah, he'll bet. Let him call. Let him get this guy's info, and then he'll tell us who to pick. Anyway, I call the guy. The guy was like, I think I Western Unioned him like $300. And I get on the phone with him. First, I talked to him on the phone. He's like, this was like one of the lines that my buddy loved. He was like, you know why I picked the Yankees tonight? And I'm like, no, why? He goes, because I could hit a sand wedge from where my office is, and I could land it on the pitcher's mound. That's why. I know what's going on. That's the kind of stuff this guy would sling at you. So I sent him $300. Now, at the time, I'm a college kid. I think I had $7,000 in the bank. That's what I had. And I was going to buy a Jeep. So I had $7,000, and my buddy is telling me this stuff. So I send this guy $300, and he's like, all right, here's the deal. Thursday night games, college football. He was like, put $500 on Rice University. If you know it, it's out in, I think, in Texas. And like every year, they're like 1AA. I don't even think they're Division One. I have no idea. But I was like, all right, that and something else. So I put down $1,000, two $500 bets. Now, my good friend was going to college at UNH, University of New Hampshire. He's the one who told me about this guy. He's the one who told me where I could put the bets in. So I would put the bets in through his friend, who was kind of like taking bets for the UNH campus. But he was doing it through his friend who was at Boston College, who was taking bets at Boston College, and that guy at BC was reporting to this other guy. Okay? That's what was going on. So I'm putting my bets in through this guy at UNH. Now, I'm flunked out of college, but that weekend I was going up to my old college to hang out with all my friends. I get up there, I'm at a party, and I see these dudes like huddled around a TV, like ESPN. I go, what's going on? They're like, dude, we put money on Rice tonight. I'm like, dude, so did I. What's the score? And they were like, killing them. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I also have 500 on this other thing. Look, that was killing. So I'm celebrating with those guys. So I'm about to win $1,000. I spent 300 on this guy, right? Friday morning, I wake up. I'm at my old school in New Hampshire, and I call the guy. And he's like, what'd I tell you? What did I tell you? I'm like, dude, it's amazing. He's like, listen, there's a lot of games going off tonight. Send me $300. I'll give you picks. I'm like, all right. So I send him the $300 from a Western Union, and he tells me, put down, I think like I did 500 on one game and 1,000 on another game. Okay, that's what I did. I was like, all right. And they both hit. So now I'm up $2,500 minus the 6. I'm up 19. And I'm like, Jesus, this guy's unbelievable. He's gone, what's that, 4 for 4 or something like that. I call him Saturday. He's like, what did I tell you? Look at what's, how much have I made you so far? How much? And because he would tell me what to bet too. He'd tell you 5 or 1,000. And I was like, so what did I say that was? 25 minus 6, 19. He's like, I made you $1,900 so far. 2 nights. And I'm like, yeah, man. And I'm like, holy shit. This guy's got it. He knows everything. I know that there are people out there that know how to do this stuff, and he is it. This is one of them. That's where I was, okay? He says to me, listen, you send me $3,000. You've already sent me 6, so send me $2,400. You got me for the whole season. Every single game, every single college football, NFL, you got it. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, this guy's a gold mine. Done. So I send him the rest of it, $2,400. I know what you're saying. You're so dumb. I know. Okay, I know. You know what I thought though? I was like, you're gonna take that $7,000 and you're gonna turn it into 40, and you're gonna buy a brand new Jeep. You think I was thinking down the road? No, I was thinking 2 feet in front of me. I'm gonna buy a brand new Jeep with all this free money that I'm winning. No, everything's gonna be fine. So I send him the money. He gives me bets. He gives me like 3 bets for $1,000 a game for that Saturday college games. I believe. Maybe those Friday games were Saturday. I don't know. It's been literally 24 years since this happened. So maybe it was college or NFL now. It's on Sunday. He was giving me the picks for. And I was like, all right. So he tells me I bet 1,000, 1,000, and 500 on like 3 games. Well, they all hit. So what happened was I'd sent him $3,000, and by the end of the weekend, by Monday morning, I had won 4,500. So I had won whatever bets it was. I can't remember, but that's what had happened. So I was up 1,500 after the 3,000, and I had them locked in for the season. Well, Monday morning, this was back when you get the newspapers. I had told my mother that night, I'm like, after those games hit on Sunday, I was like, Mom, I got to share this with you. She's like, what? I'm like, I've been betting through a bookie. I'm up $4,500, Mom. I've been paying this guy. And my mother like literally didn't even be like, Jason, you have to stop this right now. She's like, that's unbelievable. football. How do you think he knows these things? That's how ridiculous my mother was. Really? This is unbelievable. Jason, that's a lot of money. You should put some away and then continue to gamble with the rest. It was something like that. Well, Monday morning, I get the newspaper, Boston Globe, open it up. Huge scandal at Boston College. And what was going on at Boston College was guys on the football team, okay? Guys on the football team were taking bets and playing on the football team. So not only were they taking illegal bets from some bookie in New York, okay, they were also playing on the team. Now, remember I told you, my guy was at University of New Hampshire. His friend was the guy at Boston College. That was the dude who played on the team that was taking the bets. But all the bets were getting run through this bar. I feel like it was called like Mary Ann's, maybe? Mary Ann's or Mary's, something like that. They were all going through someone at Mary Ann's. And what happened when this thing broke, the guy who was at Mary Ann's, a dude in like New York got killed. The guy at Mary Ann's got beat the shit out of in Boston. And then the kid who was on the football team who was taking our bets just like ghosted. So I drove up to UNH to collect my money. So I'm like, oh, well, I got to collect my money. But here's the deal. That guy isn't getting paid money now from the guys at Boston College who were coming through the guys at Marianne who were going through the people in New York because no one's funneling money down because the thing got blown up by, like, I don't know, the feds, dude. Everyone always says the feds. Well, the feds. I don't know who it was. I just know that it was no mas. So I get to UNH and the kid was like, listen, I can only pay you out of what I was able to collect on campus. Not like he's insured, not like he's like trying to run a good business where he's like, listen, I want to keep your business, so I'm going to pay you out of my money. This kid was going on spring break in like 2 weeks. He didn't give a shit. He was still going to go. It's not like he's going to take his personal money and pay me. So I remember he gave me a wad of cash like this. Well, like that. It was like that unfolded. $999. There was like singles in there, fives. That's what he was able to collect on campus. So basically, I had sent this dude $3,000 and I got $999. So I lost $2,001. And I don't know why, but I found someone else to bet through. And I stopped going to this guy for advice. Even though I'd spent the $3,000, I don't know what happened. I just like took on this thing, started betting through someone else, and I lost another like, I want to say it's 800. That sounds right, but it could have been up to like 18. And then I stopped. And I think when all was said and done, I had $4,500 left out of that $7,000 that I had. And I was like, oh, I'm never gambling again. And so I stopped. God, it was such a nightmare. I'm still a guy who buys lottery tickets. Do you buy lottery tickets? I see those numbers. You like walk into a 7-Eleven, you're like, God, $180 million bucks. And then I play the game. What would I do with that 180? And then another one's like 46 and one's 12. And you're like, you look at the 12. This is what I do. I fantasy spend 12, right? Everything I do, I take 50%. Sometimes 60. You know, I'm like, I think you get 60% if you take the cash up front. And I'm like, all right, 12. What am I getting? 8? Maybe 7? Let's say 7 mil. And then I'm like, that's not enough. 50 mil? Yeah, all right, so look, that's going to be around 30, 31. I'm like, yeah, that's not bad. But if I'm paying cash for all the houses that I want, you know, because I want a house in L.A., then I'm getting one back east. Then I'm like, you know, am I going to be set for life? Because I'm never going to work again. And then you're like, nah, I got to get that 180 mil. It's just the worst. It's a spiral. You know what I realized yesterday I'm really good at? Spotting a light on during the day. I was in my house and I'm like, you guys remember Royal Tenenbaums? If you've never seen Royal Tenenbaums, stop watching or listening to this podcast right now and go watch it. It's the best. But Bill Murray is like training that kid who's a little weird, and he like sees the cab and he goes, "There's a dent in that car." Like it's this huge discovery. That's me. I was the other day. I go, "That light's on." No one's in the room with me. It's just me. I go, "That light's on." And I'm like, is that the sun hitting the lampshade or is that light really on? I walked over and the light was on, and I was like, you're really good at spotting lights on during the day. And I was like, dude, this is the weirdest sentiment or idea that you think you're good at. Which is why today I lit a candle during the day. And God, there's something I love about lighting a candle during the day. I was saying on Instagram, it's like it's just like fun to know that there's an energy happening in a corner of the room that you're not in. Because everything that we see, we know because we're right in front of it. Like I know that light's on, that light's on, that light's not on. By the way, one of my lights broke, so the lighting isn't great, I think. And people complain about my lighting anyway. But I'm like, really? You're watching on fucking YouTube. So, yeah. Am I going to make a better studio? Sure. Am I going to continue to bounce like this? Sure. Anyway, I lit a candle today, and I used to make water fountains, and I used to love having a fountain going because it's something cool to know, like water. There's a movement happening even when you're not in that room. That candle's lit even though I'm not in it. It's giving off a smell. It's burning. There's something awesome about that. And the first time I realized I liked it, I used to work for this guy, like refinishing like patio furniture. This guy had like tons of like, I don't know if it's chrome. You know those like outdoor bookcases, wrought iron, and they paint them white, and it's like they're very Italian looking, and then there's the chairs and the tables. Well, this guy had tons of it, and I would work for him where I would like use a steel brush and like paint thinner and strip them down and then repaint them. He would like buy old stuff. He had tons of it. He was this eccentric guy, lived in the Hollywood Hills. He said he was a screenwriter. He was a screenwriter and had this dog. He had this old house in the hills, and I didn't care. I was getting paid. And he had this other kid that worked for him, so I worked under that dude. And all I remember, that dude was a little strange. That guy kind of like managed his property, and it wasn't like he had this crazy huge house. It was in the hills, but the house was on a street, like cars would drive by. It wasn't like set back. He had a cool pool with a pool house, and I wanted to be a writer, so I would talk to him about writing once in a while, and he was cool. But like the only thing at the time he had on IMDb was like one thing he sold to MTV, and he was just like kind of bigger gay guy, super nice, but definitely eccentric. Like he had a statue, like a little tiny one like this, at the bottom of his pool that was a baby. And he used to say how he thought it was hilarious. Like he'd have people over and I'm like, oh, people would think there was a baby in the bottom of the pool. I'm like, yeah, I guess that's funny. It was. Anyway, he always had a candle lit in the kitchen of his house. Always, every day, during the day. And he told me like, oh, it's for my mom who passed away. It's like I keep her like spirit going. And I remember I fucking loved it. I would like go in the kitchen to like get a water or something, and I'd see the candle lit. And I'm like, oh, he's got that candle lit. And it was just, I don't know. It was the first time I ever saw it, and I always think of it when I, light a candle during the day. Those are my thoughts so far. You guys responded to me with a bunch of stuff, and I took it down as something, I had a great thing happen to me today. I've been kind of fighting with one of my agents because I just don't think he does anything. When you have people that work supposedly for you and they don't know how hard you work, it's like a really weird battle. And there's been all these things that have been going on in the entertainment industry where like you have a writing agent or a lit agent, and the Writers Guild, which is like, a union for writers, basically told every writer in Los Angeles, fire your agents. They don't do shit. Your union can do more for you than they can do. They suck. So if you were in the Writers Guild, in the union, you fired your lit agents. So lit agents, they can't talk to their clients anymore because they don't work for them. They can't talk to producers because producers are writers. It's like become this weird thing. And I'm not in the writers union because everything I've ever written or sold, you don't get into the union till it's on TV or like all this different stuff. So I thought like, oh, we're going to start working, like they'd have no one to focus on. So focus on your clients that aren't in the union that we can get stuff done. And I have two of them, and we've sold shows together. So I basically been trying to get in touch with them. But what agents do, they do this thing, okay? I don't know what, in your jobs, in your world, if people do this. I feel like in real world jobs, if you ever did this, people just wouldn't work with you. You call them they don't call you back if they don't have news. If they don't have news, they scramble to find it. And I've been calling, texting, and emailing my agent for like 2 weeks, being like, hey, what's up? Finally hit him a text like, dude, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I'll call you tomorrow. Doesn't call. So I call. Doesn't call back. Next day, I call. He doesn't call back. So finally, he texted me and said like, hey, the reason I'm telling you all this is because someone asked me how I stay motivated. And this is one of the ways. One, I didn't have a dad. And so I have a chip on my shoulder to prove to the world that I am valuable. Okay? That's the bottom line. I think all the time, like, man, how am I going to get a chip on my kids' shoulders to give them drive because they're getting tons of love from me and my wife? You know, like all we do is love them. Their family loves them. Everything's kosher. We're not, we don't have money, but we constantly give them love. They don't want for anything. You know what I mean? They have clothes. They have Legos. We eat out at restaurants. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing that's going to motivate them right now based off of what we're not providing, which is everything that drove me. But it's little moments like this that, like, drive me. So I know that my agent was, like, ducking me because he's trying to get meetings set about this thing that we were supposed to do. We were supposed to be meeting people and pitching this TV show in July. There's this weird season and during like June, July, August is like a development season for like big networks, ABC, CBS, Fox. That's when they take meetings on with writers and creators of shows that they're going to pay someone to write. That's when it happens. So we were supposed to go out in late July. We never had a plan. I kept hitting up, what's our plan? When's our game? What are we doing? And he just never was responding because either he's not very good or he's focused on something else. So last night, yesterday he asked me like, hey, can you give me a blurb, like a one line, what the show's about so that he can set meetings up? Because I've been hawking him so much. He's like, oh man, I got to get some meetings set up. I know what he's doing. So he says, I need a blurb on your show. Let me know. Please email me. And I said, no, not till we get on an actual phone call. And he goes, all right, I'll call you soon. This was at 4:15 yesterday. Never called. I tried him around 5 o'clock, didn't get him. So I texted him at 6:30 and I said, I know what you're doing, you know. You're avoiding me while you scramble to get some meetings set that we said would be set up a month ago. We missed development season. It's done. This is sloppy. That's what I wrote. And he said, it's not done. We're going to go to studios. We're going to go CBS, 20th, Sony. And he said, are you sending me this blurb, this one line or not? And this was last night at 11:27. And I wrote, until there's a game plan, a phone call, and a scheme in place that shows it's serious and there's a dedication to the project and to me, I'm not doing anything further. This is not how I work or do business. And then I went to bed. Why did I go to bed at 11:30? Because I was getting up this morning to write at 5 a.m. So when I get up this morning, I have a text back from. So what I'm basically saying all this to you guys is because someone asked what keeps me motivated. It's situations like this. This is the text I get back. I get that. He said, you know there's a work stoppage, though. Producers not talking to agents about writers at this point, but I hear you, which to me was beautiful. That's exactly what I want you to write back because this is what I wrote back. I said, look at the time I'm sending you this text right now, 5:16 a.m. You know what I'm doing? I'm working. I'm writing. There's always another way to get work. People not talking, work stoppage, it's all bullshit. There's always a way. Think outside the box. Try different avenues. Look at the 2 shows I've sold. They sold because I got my ass off my ass and shot things, and that's it. Plain and simple. If I allowed I love this line. Are you ready? If I allowed a work stoppage to stop me from working, I'd never get anywhere. It seems to be a culture thing for you. It's like you do the least amount of work possible and then throw your hands up. And then I said a bunch of other stuff. But anyway, my whole point is I stay motivated by looking at people not giving me opportunity or people not wanting to work with me or people I work with not doing their job and being like, okay, I need to do it. Because in my business, every now and then people like you get stuff done with people. And I've sold shows with that dude. You know? And then I have another lit agent I've sold shows with and I got work with. And they just sometimes don't want to do anything. If something comes easy, cool. And then you start realizing, especially if you have your own business. A lot of people out there, if you have your own business, you see, if you don't work hard, you ain't going to survive. That's just not going to happen. You can not work hard in corporate America and skate by because you get your job done, and that's all because maybe your boss doesn't work hard. I don't know. I've never been in corporate America. Maybe I'm wrong. Either way, that's how I stay motivated, is seeing that people aren't going to work for me, knowing that I'm busting my ass in other places, working on projects in other ways, getting up and writing. If you need something to motivate you, just tell yourself that no one gives a fuck about you. That's a really good way to get motivated. I'll tell you, last week was a really rough week because my son started kindergarten, and if you have kids that ever had to do kindergarten, some kids don't take to it easily. You're going from either preschool or daycare or stay-at-home mom, and then you're going into kindergarten that also has first, second, third, fourth, and fifth grade. So if you've ever seen a fifth grader up against a kindergartner, it's a big difference. Not only that, my son's preschool has 8 classrooms and like 15 kids in each. So real quick, that's 120 kids. This school has 400 kids. Not to mention that the preschool, some kids are half days, some are 3 days a week, some aren't. You know what I mean? You're only on the playground ever with your classroom and maybe another classroom. This one, you go and everyone's everywhere. So it's been a tough week. Not to mention, my wife and I both work, so we got to put the kid in after school. We got to put him in aftercare. And there's this one program at the school that's, if you sign up early, it's free because only 80 kids get in, but you can't pick your kid up till after 5:30 because they don't want people taking advantage of it, which I totally understand. We leave the house at 7:40 to walk to school. We're picking up at 5:30. That's a 10-hour day for a 5-year-old. Either way, it was not a fun week for him. He cried every single day. He cried before school. He cried before bed. He had a nightmare one night. One day at school, he was crying in the bathroom, and older kids made fun of him. Like, it's a lot on this poor dude. And I was just like looking at it. It was about this motivation thing, and I'm like, oh, like, how do I try and like get him to like, because he's not like, he's a very much a observe and then act kid. He's not going to dive right into things. There are other kids that aren't crying at all. They dive in, they're loving it. That's not my son, you know. He likes to look at everything and then decide. And I was like, man, how do I like get him? How do we teach him to like stand up for himself if people pick on him and stuff like that? And then I was like, then I started thinking about the chip on your shoulder and how I always had one and how do I build one in him? And I'm like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to wait till he's a little older to start like telling him to fuck people, to tell people to go fuck themselves. I have to wait, you know. It's not like you know, I don't know how I build that. I'll deal with that when we get to it, but there's no greater pain for me so far in watching your child be sad and tell you to your face that he's sad, telling me I'm sad. When I'm at school, I'm sad. Right now, I'm for a fucking week, just sad. We had a great weekend and we got him back. And then now, like, this week has been a little bit easier. Today's Wednesday. Monday was really good. Today, Monday was okay. Tuesday was really good. Really good. Today, we'll see, you know. God, and like just knowing he's going to be good in the end with your kid, but at the same time, like, you know, it's funny because I was reaching out to friends that are dads to see if anyone had something similar, and no one really had. And so no one could relate. All they'd be like, nah, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. And I'm like, yeah, I know he'll be fine, dipshit. I know. You know what I want right now? Someone to just like hear me out and then just be like, hey, you know what might be a fun thing to try? All my guy friends are like, oh, he'll be fine. Finally, I called my one friend who's like of sound mind. And I was like, hey, man, can I just vent and tell you what's going on? And he's like, yeah. And then I asked him about his kid who just started kindergarten. He's like, nah, she's been actually good. She's adjusting. I'm like, okay, great. And then he gave great advice and we talked about it and didn't once say he's going to be fine. It's just like every dude wants to just like put a blanket over shit and be like, oh, yeah, it'll be fine. Oh, yeah, because I don't really know how to, you know. I know it's going to be fine. I know. I talked about that candle during the day. Yeah, I used to build fountains too. It was like my favorite thing. And you know what happened? I worked this gig where I was when I first moved to LA, like, you don't know anybody. You're finding any work you can. I don't even know how I met this kid who got me this job as a production assistant. I think it was like through somebody I worked with who I was waiting tables, and they're like, hey, I know this guy, and he's shooting these online videos for Wolfgang Puck about how to cook the recipe. So you watch the video. No one was doing this. So there was this old restaurant that had closed down in Beverly Hills, and we were shooting in upstairs in there. They had this like kitchen open to like the dining room. It was a super cool space. And my job was basically to be a production assistant, which means I cleaned up, I got trash, I would pick people up if we need to get people. And the guy who was executive producing the whole thing was like 27 years old, thought he was taking over Hollywood. Like, he thought he was going to be the next thing. So much so, he had me take a rope. He brought me in a rope. And so in the second floor was a kitchen, and then there was like a ladder up a shaft to a latch door that went to the roof of the building. He had me go up, take 2 armchairs from the lounge in the first floor, take them up to the second floor, and then in through the kitchen to where this shaft was. Tie a rope to him, and then I went up and I pulled with my hand up, and he had someone else like pushing it up to get 2 of them on the roof. And this is why. So he could look across the building at the CAA building. Creative Artists Agencies, one of the biggest agencies in the world. He just wanted to look at it and be able to have meetings with people up there. He's like, yeah, if anyone wants to come have a meeting with me, I'll just have it up here on the roof. I was like, Jesus Christ, dude. A couple cool things happened with this guy. So he had this, like, he was driving a Range Rover, okay? And he gave me the keys, and he's like, do me a favor. I need you to pick up this documentary filmmaker who's going to come do a documentary on me while we make this thing. Okay? Listen to what I'm saying. He was making, and he wasn't making it. He got hired to be the executive producer, online how-to videos. And he got a documentary filmmaker to come film it because he thought he was so amazing that it needed to be documented. Okay. So he's like, go take my Rover, go get it cleaned, and then go pick up this kid in the hills. I'm like, all right. So I get the thing cleaned. I go pick up this kid in the hills. And it's like this crazy house in the hills, huge house in the hills. And this kid was living in the guest house. So much so, let me just explain to you. The guest house had like 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, living room, dining room, everything. This is what I later find out. Couple weird stories. Here's one. The kid who I'm picking up is like, I think he's Argentinian. Super nice. We hit it off great. He was like doing all this like behind the scenes footage with what people's roles are, who's doing what. And I'm just a PA. So every time he'd come like have the camera, I would just do funny stuff. And I would a couple times did things that like blew him away. He was like, that's unbelievable. I mean, he's Latin, so you know he's gonna get a little excited anyway. It's unbelievable, whatever. And we end up going on and making a couple of short films together. I later found out that the kid, so he was living in this guest house with this other kid. The other kid's dad owned the big house, but lived in like Morocco and would only come to LA like 3 times a year and stay in the house. So that kid, whose dad it was renting the house out for porn. Okay, they were shooting porn in this house, and he would get the money for it. His dad's not around. He didn't care. He ended up making like $40,000. He bought a school bus and then gutted it and retrofitted it to be a traveling production company. The kid was super creative. He played flamenco guitar. He was an artist. So he would travel around with the other kid who I picked up, and they would go to like Burning Man. They would shoot movies. They had a sound booth on the bus. They had edit bays. They had a screening room, and they also lived on it. They were hippies, but it was super well done. The bus was so fresh. What was the point of this? So I do a couple short films with the kid who was the documentary guy. He liked me. He's like, would you ever want to do something? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I got this idea for a short. So one day they had their bus parked in a parking lot in Venice of this building, and they could like run cords to power it, and they could use the showers inside. That's now where Google is, what building they were using. This is back when Venice could still be nice places, but like in the middle of, you could do stuff like that. now there was a restaurant next to it called Rose Cafe, which was this cool little place that had like you could like pre-made food and restaurant, and it was nice. People bought it out and changed it, and now it's like super bougie and super expensive, and Google's there and everything else is, and there's a homeless camp next to Google, PS, because there's a disparity between the upper class and the lowest class in our country, and it's a block. Anyway, so I would like go to meet this kid on the bus, and we would talk about the script, and we were going to shoot it in the condemned house I was living in. And so one day I'm there, and my guy isn't there yet, but the flamenco guitar, whose dad, real quick. So that guy's there, the flamenco guitar, rich dad guy. This is how rich this kid's world was, okay? I find out that the house that they were renting for porn got taken away from his dad because his parents were split up, not divorced, split, and his mother was involved with this other guy who was selling imitation art like Picasso's. Fraud, man, okay? That's when you know you're in a wealthy world, when your mom is out with a dude who sells $1 million fraud paintings, okay? And so, I don't know, something happened. They came back because she was still married to this guy. He lost the house to pay off the fraud, whatever. So I show up at the bus this day, and the flamenco guitar guy's there, and he's with this girl who's super pretty, super sweet, like had a sparkle to her. You know what I mean? Like some people just have a sparkle. This girl had a sparkle, and she had a Boston University sweatshirt. And I'm talking to him like, oh, did you go to BU? And she's like, yeah, I'm heading back there like in a couple of weeks to go back to college. And I was like, oh. And the flamenco guitar guy's playing. I'm not a flamenco guitar guy. You know what I mean? And I'm looking like, what is she doing with this chick? And what is she doing with this dude? I'm like 25, 26. I'm 25. And I'm like, what? This guy? Are you kidding me? The flamenco guitar? And you got to understand, I can't stand rich kids. Like, I cannot stand them. And I like this dude. I like that he was like, yeah, I'm going to live for free in this guest house, takes my dad's house, rent it for porn, and then refurb a school bus, and then travel around and make art. That's who this kid was. He was cool. And he could play flamenco guitar. But I was just like, fuck you and your flamenco guitar and your rich dad. You think you're going to land this chick? Dude, I'm living in a condemned house off the $3,200 I moved here with from working 2 jobs, moving during the day and stocking shelves at an Ames at night. That's who I was. And I'm like, no way. So I'm like, and I'm not proud of this, but I'm obviously flirting with her in front of this dude. He doesn't give a shit. He's playing flamenco guitar. And he would have long fingernails for plucking the guitar and stuff. And I was just like, are you kidding me, bro? By the way, he was a really good flamenco guitar player. I was like, I cannot, man, I'm pretty much into this flamenco guitar myself. Let me check the time on that. 50. And so I'm sitting there doing this whole thing back and forth, flirting with her. I'm like, oh, Boston, I'm going to be out there, you should check out this place. Like trying to like see if there's a way I'm going to work this. Never am able to work it because the guy's a flamenco guitar player, bro. What do you think's going to happen? Anyway, years later, I'm not living in a condemned house. I'm down in Venice at this sushi joint called Wabi Sabi, which, again, someone bought it, kept the name, changed the whole thing over, and made it crazy bougie and super expensive. Like, literally, a roll there is like $18 for like a straight up roll. And so, but back then it wasn't. And I used to go, and they used to have in the fall, they had this, they had this soup that had like, I can't remember what kind of soup it was, but it had like duck dumplings in it with like pomegranate. It was unreal, dude. Like a squash soup. It was a squash soup with duck dumplings, and then they would do like a pesto over it, like drizzle. What? And I got the sushi too, and some sushi. By the way, for sushi, for me, I'm an unfiltered sake. That's how I'm doing it. Unfiltered. And you're out there going, unfiltered? It's sweeter. It's white, cloudy. It's not that clear. A lot of people don't know about it. And I like my sake cold. I like cold sake. A lot of you might be going, Jay, it's sake. Let me get a sake. Sake. I don't really know. I know that it's Kobe beef, not Kobe beef. It's Kobe. And I remember my father-in-law was out one time, and he was telling me, he's like, "Oh yeah, Jay, we went to this restaurant. We had these Kobe sliders." And I mean, you mean Kobe? And he's like, Kobe. And I'm like, it's Kobe. And he goes, yeah, and it's Kobe Bryant, Jay. Okay, Gene, what's he? Anyway, so I'm at Wabi Sabi one night, and who's across the bar? The sushi bar. Flamingo guitar guy and that girl. And I see them, and I say, hey, and I'm like, what's up, guys? And they're like, nothing. They're like, we start talking, and it's a little weird, and like, yeah, we got married. And I'm like, oh my God, congratulations. That's so cool. And he's like, yeah, thanks. And I'm like, you married this chick? And I still feel weird about the bus exchange where I was flirting with her, and I was just like, huh. So I sent sake over as a congratulations, which is something I've never done. I had never done that before, and I loved it. Is there anything better than sending drinks over? Excuse me, can you send some drinks over? Do it. Next time you're out, if you can send drinks over, what are you, a fucking mayor? Send drinks over, you know? And it was the coolest thing. They held up, thanks, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? So then they start a production company, and they have the bus in an alley right near Wabi Sabi, and they had a building. Kid probably bought the fucking building. I don't know. I find out that chick, Olivia Wilde. Olivia Wilde. I didn't find out 2 years later, but I was basically trying to steal Olivia Wilde from this dude. What did we learn there? I'll tell you what we learned. We learned that you're never going to steal a chick from a dude who plays flamenco guitar. 1, he's playing guitar. 2, it's magic. The girl's hypnotized by the music. That's what flamenco is. Nobody likes flamenco music. It's just it's attracting you. Like, is there a fountain behind you? Are we on a vineyard somewhere? You know, I used to say all the time, my kids don't get to make decisions till they're 12. You're going to play a sport until you're 12. You're going to play an instrument till you're 12. You're going to do Boy Scouts till you're 12. At 12, I feel like you can be of right mind where you can make a decision. You don't know what you like. I used to say this, and people are like, you're going to make him play guitar? And I'm like, yeah. And if at 12, he doesn't want to play anymore, I'm going to pull him aside. And I'm like, here's the deal. You don't want to play guitar anymore? Fine. But let me just run a scenario by you. When you're 19, you're going to be on a camping trip with people from college, and you're going to be around a fire late at night. And there's going to be guys and gals, and someone's going to be playing guitar. And that person's going to have sex that night. And that's a fact. You want to be the guy sitting back with the tambourine trying to fit in, or you want to be the guy playing the guitar? Facts. Anyway, that's my that bus story. I think that's going to be the promo, 55. Let me just see what else you guys wrote in, and then we're going to wrap it up. I know you're like, Jay, I want to keep going. So do I. Talked about that. All right, so someone wrote me this. I never even knew this. First of all, a lot of you guys have been commenting that you cook while you listen to this podcast. I love that. I love that. I haven't been making many new things. We've been buying sausage lately and cooking it up with peppers and onions and mushrooms, and then like doing it in the cast iron, and then really getting it like you know, like, so what we'll do is I'll go mushrooms, onions, peppers in the pan and start sauteing in olive oil or avocado oil, whichever we're using. And then start getting them where they're getting like, you know, blackening up a little, and the onions getting a little translucent, and they're like breaking down. And then I'll put in the sausage and start getting that fat from the sausage in with everything. Maybe I'll throw in a little butter because I don't give a fuck. And then as things are like drying out, then you take some water so you get all the goods off the pan to get in. And then I make like a cauliflower mashed potato because we're, you know, trying to eat healthier. And then I put the sausage and the peppers and the onions and everything over cauliflower mash. Fuck you. It's unbelievable. Anyway, that's a new dish that I've been kind of messing with. Other than that, we just do basics. You know, I'm just realizing if you're trying to eat healthy, buy chicken breast, grill 3 of them, and then leave the rest in the fridge, and you just go and grab it and like eat it like a piece of fruit during the day, because it's like super good for you and it's easy. I got a whole chicken in there. We're going to roast up a whole chicken. I don't know what I'm going to be doing because I'm going to be laying up. I can't wait to not be able to do anything. It's not often you get to just be like, well, I got to lay in a bed. I just have my nuts snipped. So that's what I'm going to be doing the rest of today and all day tomorrow. So if anybody wants to interact tomorrow, I'll be on social media. And I'm going to be doing some writing. Yeah. Anyway, someone wrote in, said, experts say people feel comfortable with $70,000 in the bank. It's like makes them feel like they have $3 million, and ask me how I feel about it. Let me tell you this. If you're out there, I think there's different levels of having $70,000 in the bank, right? Because do you have $70,000 in the bank, but you own a home? Because you're killing it if that's the case. If you own a home and you have $70,000 in the bank, good for you, man. Crush. Some of you might be like, Jesus Christ, if I didn't have... There's a comedian. I won't tell you his name, but he's a funny dude, and he's created one of the most famous TV shows in comedy, if you're a diehard comedy fan. And he and I at lunch one day, and I was telling him about, like, you know, the money that I was trying to get. I'm like, you know, I was looking for advice, and I gave a number to him, and he goes, man, if I had that number on my bank account, I would be horrified. So everything's relative is what I'm saying. So if I think, you know, if you own a home, you get $70K in the bank, I think you're doing a really good job. And I can see why it would make people feel relieved. You're like, yeah, okay. I got $70,000. Because, I mean, what's your mortgage? You know, like if your mortgage is, let's say on the high end, it's $4,500, thinking if we're all normal people. I mean, I know people, it's $7,000. That's a lot of money to have to pay. So that would give you 10 months of your mortgage if you had $70,000 in the bank. You know, other people, you might have a 401k, you invested, you know, where do you have your money? I think if I had $70,000 in the bank, which there are times I have, I don't know what we have right now, I wouldn't feel comfortable because I don't own a home. So, you know, I live in Los Angeles. So if we're ever going to buy a home in Los Angeles, which I honestly don't know if we ever will, depending on where we want to live, on the low end, we would still need $100,000 for a 20% down payment somewhere on the super low end. So I don't know if $70,000 would relieve me, but at least you know that you're like, you have something, you know. I think, you know, like I said, depending on where you live, if you live in a community where you can buy a home, I'm on Zillow all the time. I think I've said this. I'm on it all the time. And I constantly look for property in Massachusetts, upstate New York, Portland, Oregon. Recently, I looked in Portland, Maine, just because I'm like, I like it, and I know there's like cool food scene there, and it's like rustic, and it's Maine, you know, which is somewhat affordable. It's still like when you get into like bigger cities, it's not super affordable. I look in New Hampshire sometimes. I look in like California, which places that I love, but are always going to be pricey. That's like fantasy world. But when I look in Massachusetts, I basically am like, well, if I'm going to live somewhere that's not a major city or close to a major city, I want some land. So I put in like minimum 2 acres, and then I put in 3 bedrooms, because if we're going to live out there, it'd be nice to have 3 bedrooms so the kids aren't sharing a room. It'd be nice to have 4 so we can have guests, and it'd be nicer to have like a guest house. Because some of those like farms you can. And I look at like farms, and you can find places. So once I find a place and I look for like under $500,000, then when I find those places, I look to see what the schools are and how far away they are and how far away the town is. Because I'm looking in like rural towns, and some have a cool little downtown, like a couple of restaurants, maybe a bar. That's all I need. Something cool. And so I think like, well, 70,000. There's a car outside. Probably not enough. I love you guys. I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening. Tell your friends. Share. You're the best.